Okay, this is the what's known as the Keshe Plasma Reactor group, and it's Tuesday, September 29th, 2015 in my part of the world at least, and we get together here for the last couple of years on Tuesday nights to discuss the Keshe theories and to show experiments and it's more or less a show and tell kind of thing. So I've got my picture up there that I had in one of the last workshops. I was doing a drawing while Mr. Keshe was talking about creating plasmas. Eisen had mentioned this concept of using your hands to create plasma between your hands, and so I thought that was interesting. Mr. Keshe talked about it for a while there too, and you know, said that that was indeed the case. It could be done.
Just quick something, if you won't give me a right to make a recording.
Oh, okay, sure. I haven't started recording yet, actually, on the
Rick.
Yes?
As a Reiki, you know, I'm a Reiki master.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do Reiki, you use energy from your hands to do healing.
Yes, yeah. Hang on a sec till we get till we start the recording, so we can get that. The comment would be good. I just have to allow recording, and I think what I can do is just allow recording.
Yeah, that's done.
No, I can't. I can't do a group allow
I
recording.
have another question though. In today's workshop, the recording button wasn't there. Are they different versions of?
Yes, there are different versions of Mel there. They some of them allow recording, and some of them I have to allow the recording, and so on. It gets a little complicated. Okay. So yeah, we got that going. Okay, now we're recording. We're on live stream. So far as I know, it's working okay there. And let me see, it's a different thing now in live stream. Let me see. Okay, it's all working better today for some reason. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so Michael, you just mentioned something about healing and hands after I just talked about, I showed my hands and talked about how Zaizan and Mr. Keshe had mentioned this about creating a plasma between your hands. And yes. What did you say?
So because I'm a Reiki master, when you do Reiki, you use the energy from your hands to heal.
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, you can rub your hand together to get the chi energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you pass it, you know, over the body. Yeah, so you have got the energy field coming out between your hands.
Okay, well that's a good point you just mentioned, where you say that you actually rub the hands together.
Yes.
Not just close, but actually rubbing to get the energy going, right?
Going, yeah.
And then you can create or
That's
use
right.
it to pass over someone's body and so on.
Yes, if you take your hand and you pull it apart, you could feel the energy field.
Right.
Between your hands.
Right, yeah.
As you rub it, you could literally, you know, bring your hand in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, you rub it, and then you can feel in between, like.
Yeah. You should be able to feel it. Give it a good rub, you know, and flash it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's what make you work.
Right. Makes sense, yeah. Some people just tend to do that before you start a job. You warm up your hands. You tend to rub them then you're ready to begin. Your hands are synthesized and ready to engage in whatever plasmas are nearby. So when you mentioned you pass the hand over the body. How close would you have that? Does that matter? Would it be like within an inch or so, within a couple of centimeters?
Yeah, but you push your hand down so you can feel the pain, because your hands will pulse. If you put it over the body, you could literally, and your intentions and put everything, you can literally feel where the pain is.
Right. And how far away would, like, if the pain was here, how high up would it be? Would it be just, would you just feel where you needed to be? Or would you continue to push right down onto the body?
About 2-3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't touch anyone unless you ask them for their permission to touch them.
Right.
You don't touch any of them, anyone. You ask them, can you make up their permission to touch them? Yeah. So you put about 3-4 inches above them.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can literally feel, with your hands, the changes of the energy field.
Right. At that distance, you'd be definitely dealing more with the energy field rather than the trying to influence the physicality itself by having your hands very close, and the fields would be more intense than on the matter level. But you're dealing with the body, the field of the body, I guess you might call it the astral body, some might say, or perhaps a higher level body than that. The astral body is generally pretty close to the body, I understand, or
right.
So in any case, you feel the energy field, the area where the pain is. You can feel where the pain is. Is that what you're saying?
Your hand pulse, and obviously you have to go through a certain little meditation before you take on the whole thing. You have to connect yourself with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you do what you have to do. So it's quite interesting. Very good Reiki.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that, for example, like if we're trying to create a spaceship out of plasma, like basically with our bare hands, with our bare minds, you might say, or bare emotions, what would that look like? Would it be possible to like I'm thinking the Reiki type processes might be useful in order to sort of iron out the problems that people would have, their pains and basically twists in their fields that need to be smoothed out so that they can be better, in a way, better spaceship crew members, because it seems like the crew members have to be fairly clean to allow the flow of the principal energy and so on that's going on while you're trying to move at greater than light speeds and this kind of thing, where we have to be present in a different state in our what we call our body, but be present perhaps in our higher bodies, so that we can take the fields that are coming in so they don't destroy us, essentially. It's kind of the way I understand. That's a little awkward way of saying it, but I don't know if that
it's a lot like I've been looking at the pens. When you create that ball of energy, you're creating potential. Now you could use that potential for healing or for moving a rock or lifting yourself off the ground. I don't see any real difference in the energy other than what you want to do with it.
I think you're correct. That's how the Egyptian used to move the stones to build the pyramid. Levitation, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's a good point. Do you have any information on that you can inform us about as far as, I mean, it must be the same basic principles involved as what we're trying to
Well,
go
I
for.
don't have any information yet. I've got a couple of my healing pens out, and I've asked the people who are working with them, and also the people who I've taught to build them. Anything you can think of, try them for anything. Try them to change the flavor of a glass of water, or move a ping pong ball, or anything you can think of. Try the pen for that, because I
Mm-hmm.
sort of see that pain pen as, I think I mentioned earlier, as an intent laser.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting phrase for it. Yeah.
So I haven't got any responses back yet, other than the people who've using them for healing, and they're having really good success with that.
Yeah, we get a lot of good stories about that. I know Michael could elucidate about that too. Actually, I was asking Michael whether he had some information about the pyramids and how they levitated things in the pyramid days, because he might have some direct knowledge of that, perhaps, and how that would tie in with all this creating a plasma thing. But the plasma pens, these pain pens are quite incredible. Um, Quite an incredible device. It's a lovely concept. I know, like I say, Michael is also familiar with that. He's created several interesting wands and so on for that sort of purpose. But yeah, Michael, did you have anything interesting about that? You mentioned the levitation in pyramids and so on, levitating the blocks for the pyramids, for example. Do you
Yes,
have any?
because the way I look at it really is your intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I send out a device, I also send them a warning notice. Because it depends on their intentions. If their intentions is good, what they want it for, they can literally program the device to do what they literally want according to their intentions. But if your intentions is not good and you're not clean, as you said earlier on, if your temple is not clean, then you're gonna have problems. Not gonna work.
Okay, so does that mean you'd have to be like really clean in order to operate devices back in the Egyptian times where they're moving these rocks with perhaps some sort of help from a device, but yet through their intention and through their focus, they were able to do that?
But I just say you can manipulate energies, because if you understand the energies, people can take the energy and use it for badness, because it's here to use us both.
Right.
So
Yeah.
energy works, which I'm just learning, which is what they've been using on people and mind control by manipulating energy to mess you up.
If I may
Yes.
interject, one of the researchers, Michael Tellinger, I know that's a bad word for a lot of people, but he does have some interesting information. In his research, he's discovered a tool that he believes that was being used, and it's essentially a horn-shaped metal, um, what's a cone, like a fairly long, thin cone, and they use two of these to direct their energies from what his research has uncovered. Very similar to what we're doing with the pens. It's just a different shape. It may be the very same thing. I mean,
Well, that was
what we're doing with
also.
the copper, they had copper back then, because that was the copper age, and it would have been a simple thing to nano coat this copper with fire. So we may want to look at an actual closed cone shape, like a horn, a straight horn kind of, yeah, like an animal's horn. but yeah, very similar sort of thing as that. And they would hold one in each hand and either put them on either side, from what he's been saying, either either side of it, or they would direct that energy towards whatever they're working with.
Well, there was the Tibetan, the ancient Tibetan tale or whatever. Actually, I think it was from the 1920s or something like that, where they witnessed the raising of a stone. They had these guys would set the stone in this on top of this other platform of stone, I believe it was, and they would set up their instruments in a array around this stone here. And some of the instruments were trumpet-like, long trumpets, and then they had large like bass drums and so on in the back, and it was all directed at this granite type stone apparently, and they were able to lift that and an actual film of it.
Yeah, when I read the story, I read the same story you did, and the researcher said he was there with a film camera, and they filmed this, but nobody knows where this film went.
Yeah, right, I bet. Somehow they were able to raise the stones. The idea is they're in this, trying to build this temple on the side of a cliff, and they had no access to get the stones up or down the cliff or whatever, so they sent them up by this process to deliver them. So, I mean, it makes sense that it would be like, it only makes sense that if you could have that much control over the fields around an object, that knowledge must have been passed down, and it probably got passed down from the same people that knew how to move the pyramid, stones, and probably the ones before them that knew how to build the temples all around the world, and maybe they were done in a similar manner. Who knows, really? So, the idea being, what here? This is like using, it seems like, sound waves rather than simply mental or emotional energy. But you can imagine also the crescendo and what sort of sound must have been put out by this by these instruments, which are all designed to put out very specific sounds for this job. And it probably was quite an emotional experience. You would have to be in a higher emotional state to handle it. It would be so intense.
So any musician that plays with a group, every once in a while, you fall into this groove with the group, and it's like you're one mind. You can't screw up, you can't do anything wrong, and it flows amazingly well. And it's generally pretty rare these days that you fall into that, but amazing things happen when you get there, and it doesn't seem to matter what's in your hands. It's the energy of that connection. So I'm kind of thinking, from all of the stuff that I've seen, people do this energy work with their finger, they do it with their hands, they do it with different kinds of tools, different shapes of tools, and it all winds up being the same thing. So I'm kind of looking at this system as the instruments are more of a way to conglomerate the group into one coherent thought rather than 18 or 20 different thoughts all at once.
Good point. Yeah. So it may be that just the congregation of those units into one thought is the end result required from all these instruments and so on. It's not really the instruments that are important so much as the overall result of the one thought that's so powerful that it's able to lift the block.
Yeah, I mean, like we've got a documented evidence, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases where a group of people get together, they meditate on a one specific thing, and they change the experience of the entire city for the short period of time. I don't think the tools matter. I think the tools are just a way to help us focus.
Can I add to that? Rick, it's Jeff.
Sure.
I was just, one of the things that it's just like a metaphor that I'm thinking of right here is like you were just saying, John, like the tools don't really matter. If you were to think of, it's more so that they're creating an environment that allows that potential to work. And it made me think of like if you're boiling water, you know, it's like the water just sitting there, you use the flame. Once the water is boiling, you can, you know, do other things to that water. So it's like these horns in this example might be like the burners, you know, they create the boiling water, they create they modify the local field environment that allows something like that to occur. Or even like you're saying, like with the meditation in a city, it modifies the environment. And that really the horn, whatever tool it may be, is really just the tool that creates or that modifies the environment. And then with that modified environment, you can do different things. And it might be that the power of intention is magnified dramatically in this modified environment that allows you to move the stone, more so than like using the horns to locally move the stone. Like, does that make sense? Like, rather than using it like a laser, you're really modifying this environment that allows you to do something in a much more like broad, I guess, manner. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. From what I understand, being a musician, the sound has a very, very powerful emotional quality to it. And so rather than using the sound simply to create the how would I put it, a plasma condition, it would create an emotional condition which would allow the plasma. um, I'm kind of leaning away from, you know, you got to have tools, you got to have this, and it's got to be this shape, and it's got to be this material. I don't think that's absolutely accurate. I think it's useful, certainly, but we need to get to the point like Rick was showing earlier, where you're creating the plasma just with your hands. Get away from the reliance of these tools and realize it's not the tool that's doing it. Uh-oh, everybody went quiet.
No, I was just, yeah, I was thinking on what you were saying. Yeah, I think that's like, and I agree with you. Like, I think the tool is just like there's a lot of ways you can boil water. It really doesn't matter. You just need to boil the water in any way you can.
So it sort of creates the conditions, you might say, first, and then that allows you to use the mind or use a different tool, let's say, to do the work that needs to get done.
I think the word condition is confusing. I would use the word focus. The tool would create the focus that's required for this.
Okay.
Whether the tool is a mantra or a color or a sound, or something you're holding in your hand. I don't think I think it's the focus that's the important part of this. Because we've got so many varied examples of exactly the same energy doing essentially the same job done in a million different ways. If it was the tool, there would be very specific tools that work really, really good and others don't work so good, but they all seem to work.
Right. But some work better than others in terms of if you were real sensitive, then you would have to have the right tools. In other words, if one of these trumpets was off key, then the head priest would know right off the bat, and it would have to get fixed. Otherwise, he'd know it wouldn't work properly, and so on.
Well, that would be a disharmony within the groove, for lack of a better description.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Linda, I don't know, she's probably listening. I had her just take, like, we were how am I going to make the pads? How am I going to do this? How am I going to get a pen? And I went, well, just relax. You've got a bottle of GANs. Just take the bottle of GANs and put it on your belly. Don't worry about the tools. Just take the bottle and put it on your belly and let it sit there. And then we went off and talked about other stuff. And about 10 minutes later, she's like, you know what? I don't hurt anymore. So you see what I mean? It's more just get the fields in there. It doesn't matter how you focus on it. I don't think it matters how you focus on it. Just get them there. If you need to have a color wheel in front of your eyes, then use a color wheel. It doesn't, if you need a pain pen, use a pain pen. No, nobody cares. It's getting the focus and that directing that energy somehow. Now we can test this in a million different ways. We can make a pen in what we consider to be the wrong way, give it to somebody who hasn't got a clue, and say, here, try this. And if it still works, it's not the wrong way, right? What we considered wrong. Well, you can use a hammer to stir soup too. I mean, it's gonna work. Mm, I do kind of agree with you, but it's also like Moran says that strikes me as a bit of a schizophrenic situation where you're talking about beating something with a hammer, and I'm talking about using a device of some description to get 12 people all thinking the same thought at the same time. There's a bit of a difference there. So the tool, in that respect, whatever they agree on. The video about the lady in, I think it was in China or Taiwan, who had the bladder tumor, and she's laying on the table, and there's two doctors behind her, and they've agreed, okay, this word means this woman is perfect. And they just started chanting these words while the ultrasound was on this woman's bladder. And in 2 minutes, you sit there and you watch this tumor just disappear. Um, there's so many examples of this happening with and without tools that I'm disinclined to rely on the tool. Now, as a training device, awesome, beautiful. But realize it's not the tool that's doing it. It's you using the tool as a focus device. Yeah.
Recording on live stream here.
Oh,
Sorry about that. You had the mic off before there.
yeah. Yeah, I can see what you're talking about, and I totally agree with you. But I'm well within the people that I talk to anyway. I'm looking to step beyond the tools as quickly as possible. And I mean, if you need them, use them. It doesn't really matter. But for myself, I'm looking at going past that, so I don't have to go and scrounge up some copper and smelt it into a metal and stretch it into a wire and make this thing so that I can have a healthy dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Because the idea of just thinking myself to Barbados is definitely very appealing.
Okay, so well, that's a good example in a way. Like right away when you say that word Barbados, it conjures up all kinds of visual images for people, and then you say going there and without any tools, basically without the tools of airplane and that kind of thing, just doing it inside yourself or with yourself, or possibly what if a whole group of people agreed to go to Barbados night, and you get together, and but you don't actually go anywhere in the physicality. You go there in your visualization and in your communication with others. So,
Yeah, there's a group that I used to be with, some really nice people. They have what's called dream ship flights, and that's exactly what they're doing.
okay.
Oh, I'm gonna have to dig around and see if I can find that. I'll shut up and see if I can scrounge that up and put the link in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, that's a good kind of thing to know a little bit about what others are doing out there. On the other hand, we need to find our own path too, but it's nice to have some clues. I mentioned before there's a group in Souk that I've heard of that's getting together a dozen isolation tanks, they're called, where you lie inside the tank and you're isolated from the environment, and you have a warm salted water basically that you lie in, so you're floating. Flotation tanks are called, and or sensory deprivation tank. And these 12 tanks are lined up. Drawing here. These tanks are all lined up so they face the let me see, I'll get 12 lined up here. Something like that. Say 12 tanks with the heads. Everybody's heads are together in the center of these tanks. So, your body's out that way. And so in the center here is some sort of crystals, apparently, some sort of crystal setup. And people are to go into these isolation tanks, and you do some sort of group meditation, group experience of voyaging together. So I heard about that a few years ago. I haven't heard anything of it since. I think those sort of things were supposed to be set up around the world and whatnot. Okay, anybody else want to jump into the conversation on that?
Well, I found the group that's doing the dream flights, and it's a group called spirittrainchronicles.com. and I posted with these guys for, oh goodness, a year and a half or so. I was talking to them, and they've got some excellent people and some really nice ideas.
Sorry, what was it called again?
Spirit Train Chronicles, all one word. But they do, I think it's a weekly, what they call a dream flight. And they have dream flight ships, and you can pick a ship, or you can just show up and they'll assign you to a ship. But it's all basically done in the meditation and in the, I don't want to say the imaginary world, because that's actually more real than the one we're in now. But it's all done on the other side. And the more you do it, the more concrete it becomes for you.
I'll just show the website here. We'll have a brief look at it. I think this is the one you mean.
That's the one.
And see, what is it all about?
If you go to the Galactic Fleet, that's where their Spirit Train stuff is at. Second line, fourth link.
Oh, yes, okay. Oh, there's a whole bunch of them. So they have different towns, I guess, or different places that are doing this.
Oh, this is global. It's like us. It's all over everywhere.
Okay. I have a core fleet. Okay, they keep a log. That's a good idea. Jeez, it's pretty involved.
So it's been going on for a long time, and these guys have got so much anecdotal evidence and stories and people. I've been there, and they described the ship, and they described the insides, and I mean, it's not, I can't say it's undeniable, but it's very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, yeah, it gets into all kinds of stories.
And the passwords aren't a way to keep people out. They're a way to get people to focus. It's one of the tools. Which is, from what I was talking about earlier, you get a group of people that all want the same thing. You got to get them to all focus on the same thing.
Right, okay, well, that's something that folks can check out if they're into that particular aspect of this whole thing.
And these folks that are doing this, they may be good ones to get involved with what we're doing with the energy work and manifesting, because they have been doing this for a couple of years now.
We have, for example, sorry?
Wes Anak, who is one of the main people on this site, he's a direct voice channel, and he's had lots of experience with the energetic side.
So we have your first UFO familiarization flight. What you need to know. It seems like we should check that out. From 2012.
Yeah, and the Dreamwalker Diaries, that's Wes's site. That's his specific ratings.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I gotta get the screen on. Thank you, Guy. So that people can see on live stream.
But I also don't really see this as any different than what we're doing. It's just a different direction.
Right. It may not be the same timeline that we need to go on, but we can run parallel timelines just fine. So I think there are many groups that have similar thoughts recently. So alrighty, and let me see. There was another link there. How to manifest your own galactic light ship. And then there's tips on how to manifest your own ship. Think of something that gives you a lot of joy or happiness. Do not try to think of a ship, but let the ship tell you what it looks like. That's interesting. It's like Keshe more or less is talking about it like that. Right, okay, well, that's again something that folks can check out, spirittrainchronicles.com. Okay, what else have we got lined up here today? Anybody have a topic?
I haven't really been doing any work this week, just telling everybody about the 16th and getting really excited.
Okay, and by the 16th, can you let the folks at home know what you mean by that?
Well, that's the day that actually in your face, take it home kind of energy devices are released to the planet. It's going to be one of the most amazing days of the last 10,000 years, I think. The plasma reactors, the core, what would you call it? You'd call it the core battery of the plasma system is done, physical in your hands.
Yeah, I don't know. Battery. This won't be the battery system, though, right? You mean the power supply system?
Well, yeah. There's a real big confusion there because the power supply generates electricity for the house. The power unit generates plasma for all the other little goodies that you can plug into it. If I remember that right, and if I recall what he said last week, it's the power unit, the actual plasma unit, that's going to be released on a big way on the 16th. But I could be wrong. It could be the actual electricity unit. Who knows? We'll see. But I'm still excited.
Yeah, it seems like a big date in any case. October 16th. What? Just wondering what day that was.
Excuse me. Can
Hello.
you put the construction project out there?
Pardon me?
Can somebody put that construction project going on there while we're talking? Yeah, I believe that the difference is the power generator is the one that stands alone that will work for Africa if you don't have a grid to hook up to. And the power supply needs to be hooked up to the grid in order to work.
Right.
And then there's also a unit that just outputs massive amounts of plasma. So you can plug in your spaceship generator or your water generator or whatever else, and it supplies the plasma for those units. So, and they're all pretty close to the same name. So I'm having trouble juggling that.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that when he was talking about the power generator or power supply, that we're all waiting for it to be come from the factory and delivered to everyone who's ordered it. he kept on going on about how you can get it to generate water for you or whatever you need.
Yeah, he's talking about like plug-in modules for it, for other aspects could be used with the plasma. So
yeah, right. He did draw a bunch of modules that he hooked up to, but I couldn't get over to the first time we found out that it didn't work for a resistive load. You know, in other words, he was only, I believe, it was only stopping the meter, you know, like 10 or 20%. So if you had a heater on and it was 1 kilowatt, it would only be generating 200 watts, and then the grid would be delivering the other 800 watts.
Were you the fella who put the questions on there about how do we generate heat with this thing?
Yes.
Did you understand what I posted?
Oh yeah, I'm very well of all the sciences and so forth. You can use a heat pump, or you can use induction. A lot of people have reported over Unity with using an induction cooktop.
Yeah, what I was getting to when to answer those questions was, you can generate heat without having to use a resistive load. You can have the system run an induction motor and use that motor to spin a disc of magnets and have those magnets up close to a big copper heat sink or a big aluminum heat sink, and then suck the heat out of that. So
yeah,
there's around the issues that he brought up.
Yeah, I have expertise in that. And as far as spinning magnets to generate heat, no one's reported anything that I see as beneficial. But one man made a rotor, a picture a cylinder with a bunch of blind holes drilled all around it, and he put it inside a pipe, and he spun it with a motor. He injected water, it would cause a cavitation, and it would generate just tons of steam.
Yeah,
way over Unity.
Super violent, incredibly violent.
Yeah, they hooked it up for a firehouse, you know, and imagine all the men coming back from from a fire and stuff. They all want a nice hot shower, and you got 8 men that want some hot water. Well, they just put this thing in and just put out tons of hot water.
Yeah, those do work really, really good, but they erode really fast. Those central rotors don't last very long.
Yeah, the cavitation tears them up.
Yeah, and the eddy current heaters, they do work really good. You can melt copper pipe in a matter of like 10 or 15 seconds with a
with oil, and the oil causes a lot of friction, and I think that's over Unity.
Yep. Who was it? There was a scam guy. I think he was a scam guy. I don't really want to say it publicly because I'm not absolutely certain, but I think it was not. Oh, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he had a very similar sort of a system, but he just had a smooth steel cylinder inside a aluminum container with a very, very, very small gap between them. It was only like 1/8 of an inch gap between them, with a small bit of oil in the bottom, and you spin this thing up and it just pounds out the heat because it's actually the violence of the oil being bashed creates a tremendous amount of friction. Basically, it's a really bad bearing, and you're generating heat just like you would if you had a really bad bearing or the wrong kind of oil in a bearing. And yeah, it does work. I don't know how well. I didn't build it.
You can think of oil as a bunch of tiny ball bearings.
Yep.
Now just rubbing together.
And if clearances aren't right, those ball bearings don't lubricate. They generate a huge amount of friction.
Yes, none of which is part of what we're trying to learn about, really. So those are the old old school kind of contraptions in a way. Even this this thing of the using implosion and using the actual cavitation and so on. I thought that was a pretty cool idea initially when it first came out and all that, but like you say, there's erosion problems and all kinds of stuff. But I think we have to go to a couple steps higher than this. Although I think there's lessons in this arrangement, because if you look on the micro level of what actually happens with implosion, where you have a bubble which expands and then suddenly collapses. It's just a vapor bubble, and when it collapses on itself, it produces this enormous blast of energy that comes out.
Yeah.
So,
but then again, we guys are way off topic. We're not talking about any plasma here. We are.
Well, we are actually. This is my point: is when that bubble implodes, it is a plasma that is created.
Exactly.
It is so. It is like 5,000 degrees temperature. It's what is it? 2,000 atmospheres pressure, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's like 30,000 psi on that spot, or even more. It goes into, some say, into the million, as much as 1,000,000 degrees.
And implosion is where
much
we want
more,
to go, because that's where the free energy is. It's not an explosion; it's an implosion.
Well,
one of the ways.
Yeah, I think there's clues in that. It just makes sense that. This
is the magic of water.
Yeah, and you're starting out with nothing inside that water, and from that nothing bubble, when it goes down to even less than nothing, a dot, then you get a big blast of energy out of it. Huh? That's crazy in a way. But yet that's what happens with this implosion.
Here's another amazing thing about water. A scientist took a pool pump, it did something like 50 gallons per minute or something like that. And he made a closed loop circuit, and he ran the water through a screen, a very small screen, as to cause cavitation. Well, he ended up, after running this thing for a while, he would take the water and he would find all kinds of elements that transmuted from the water. And he generated X-rays and gamma rays, and he died of cancer. Just from a damn water pump.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Okay, so don't put your pool up wrong.
Yeah.
I'd like to look at the heat aspect of this, because it's getting into winter, and this motorhome is going to get bloody cold here in the next month or two. With the plasma.
So, Sandor?
With the plasma.
How's Russia? Oh, excuse me.
Somebody was talking. I don't want to interrupt. I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to add to what you said. Somebody got cancer of some dumb cylinders. Think about the Crookes tube, which is the base of the Röntgen tube. It's just a dumb piece of glass globe which has a rotating electrode inside and some high voltage applied, nothing special.
Interesting.
But people don't understand what they do when they do such things. I'm sorry, I have to let the dogs in.
Internet is unstable here.
Uh-oh.
Something's...
Looking at what Miranda's been talking about, when he talks about the sunlight coming from the sun hitting the atmosphere, and that makes the light, that makes the infrared, that makes energies, or that converts the energies into something that we can use. It seems that there's a filter element there. Now, it may not be a filter. It may actually be a transmutation device. I don't know. I'm going to call it a filter. Is there a filter that we can put around a small single unit reactor that creating a free plasma field that's going to emit infrared?
There we go.
There we go. Because I need heat, and I can't afford to run 5 or 6 of these little ceramic heaters all winter. It's just way too expensive.
Well, Keshe talked about a new way of heating, which is to heat the body directly or create the environment around the skin that's heated. So you don't have to...
that's not going to keep my pipes from freezing.
Good point.
Well, we're also talking about lifting off into the blue yonder, out into the vacuum. It's going to be damn cold out there. We don't necessarily need a sheet of metal around us, but we need a field.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put a field right around this whole motorhome if that's going to work. I mean, I don't mind living in a bubble. But,
as long as it's invisible. That'd be great. If somebody tries to come up to your place and they just go clunk into an invisible barrier.
Well, I can, from what I understand, we can tune it so that people with bad attitudes don't get through it. So that
you just like to be invisible.
That would be fun. But if this filter concept works, which it seems like that's kind of how, what we're doing now, we're using beads to filter it into the electron vibration aspect. We're using a specific GANs to filter it into a physical manipulation energy that we can use in our bodies. We use the same kind of GANs, but we add another field to it to filter it into food. What would be the filter for infrared? What would that be? Nitrogen? What part of the
carbon dioxide?
Ozone, perhaps?
No, carbon dioxide.
Well, that's the CO2 GANs. If that was the case, that stuff should be hot, right? So I don't.
Carbon dioxide is very dense, and it would be good for converting plasma to heat.
Well, it's good for not transmitting heat. That's why it's a greenhouse gas.
It's also methane is probably one of the best, and it's
Uh-oh. There was a fella who posted in the golden age of GANs. He sprayed his windows with CO2 water, and his heating load went way down. Makes sense. You're putting a really good insulator on your windows. But I'm looking at you make
opening up and so on there, John.
Yeah, well, we know from working with the gas reactors that when you put a single atom of hydrogen in a vacuum space, however big that space is, it's going to open up to fill that space. I don't see the GANs as any different because it is in a nano state. It's a single molecules in their own space. So if you're going to do it in your vacuum jar, your bell jar, I would use an extremely small amount, and we need that measuring device. We need that plasma sniffer, wherever it is that they were supposed to be.
Yeah, we need to make those detectors.
Well, yeah, that's probably right. And there was a detector mentioned in the last Chinese workshop, which just involved a simple cup, and the cup has a nano-coated wire inside, or sitting on the. I should have made that a different color. This is
I tried building one of those and I couldn't get it to work.
Right. And so the idea was you have one cup with the wire going this way and one cup with the wire going this way. And you hold both of those close to your plasma reactor combination or whatever you're trying to measure the fields out of. And one of the wires or the other one should start shaking or vibrating or whatever when they encounter these plasma fields.
I'm wondering if your little gravity detector would do the job if you used a nano-coated antenna on it.
Quite possibly, yeah. It doesn't, well, the gravity detector that I have, it doesn't have an antenna. It just has a capacitor as the detector. And it's in a Faraday cage. It's totally enclosed. In fact,
yeah. So what
it's
would
a
happen
box
if we
like
made
this.
an actual nano-coated capacitor for it? Using the nano coating as your dielectric rather than
Yes, you're right. I think that is the way to go. In fact, I think like this is, it's very simple circuit. It's a very simple circuit. Well, there may be a million other ways to do it besides the way that doesn't work.
Okay,
I would call that another, I believe another thing we could call this plasma is a scalar wave.
Right. So that's a good point.
What is that chip, Rick? Is that a 741?
The chip? Geez, I forget exactly what it is. I don't know if it's on it either.
It's just an op amp, right?
It's a 7611. Yeah, basically it's an op amp. That's right. So it's very simple circuit. It's got the op amp and little else. Capacitor. It's got you know, a plug-in switch and a battery circuit that's part of it. So this little capacitor, whoops, side the screw. This little capacitor here that's the detector, strangely enough, and that's to detect gravity waves. It seems like it's an impossible scenario, but the fellow that developed this, I forget his name. Someone could probably.
Iwandik or something.
Yes, right. And he spent over 20 years pretty dedicated to developing these circuits and actually doing the tests with it and so on. And it is very interesting. It totally makes sense the way he explains it, how basically in between the layers of the capacitor, like if you have your capacitors are wound up cylinders basically, and so you have many layers in there, but between each layer you'll have well, ions or charges, let's say, and those charges will they're affected by gravity. So if something here is a large black hole or the Milky Way goes by, then and the Earth is here, then the center line from the center of the Earth to that object, whatever it is, and goes through this capacitor, influences the charges in the capacitor. So it'll tend to have more or less flow according to objects that are over it. Even your arm, putting your arm or your body over this apparently is enough to change the gravitational effect that occurs. Or if the gravity of the Earth was to change, that will change it. But specifically it's designed to sense large objects that are at that 90-degree center line, very specific center line, into the sky. So if a black hole happens to go by, even though you can't see it, if it's exactly on that center line, then it'll get sensed by this device, by the capacitor. Or if it's the Milky Way going by, then, and it goes by in a regular cycle, then you'll see the Milky Way being received by this capacitor in the way that it responds. Every night the Milky Way goes by on your day graph, then it'll show the influence of it.
Okay, so if we were to pull the plasma through that capacitor with some sort of a sink, we should get a very similar effect.
Well, I'm not sure. This whole deal is inside of a Faraday cage, so it's meant to be basically isolated, and it won't pick up any electronic signals. I put it beside electric motors that usually drive electronics crazy, and it gets nothing out of it. It's kind of neat.
Right.
And so to pick up a plasma, it would make sense that if the plasma puts out, I think someone talked about compression waves. So if this is your plasma, it would put out longitudinal waves, as it's known as. So they would travel not as a transverse wave, but more as a pulse that comes from a central source. Then it may penetrate this Faraday cage, and those impulses quite possibly could be picked up by the gravitational, the gravity meter. I mean, if go back to this other one of the opening here, if that's opening, and it really is a magnetic and gravitational field, then as it opens up, we should be able to see a change in the gravitational field at least. And maybe there's a way we can pick up on the magnetical with another device.
Yeah, for testing purposes, just to see if it's going to work, you should be able to just wave that thing in front of a big jar of GANs and monitor the output. You might actually, if you see any sort of a spike, then yeah, it probably will work. So you'd set up a baseline with the vacuum at normal atmospherics, and then start drawing a vacuum and watch your baseline and see what the baseline does.
Rick, did you ever wind a simple catechus winding and then pulse it and see if that set off your detector?
No, I don't believe so. I do have windings like that. Guy has made a couple of them, and yeah, we have those.
I don't think we made that one. No.
Yeah, it's like a self-canceling field, but it makes a transverse wave.
Well, I was thinking
not transverse. I mean longitudinal scalar.
Is it not the Smith coil you're talking about?
Smith coil.
Smith
coil. That rings a bell. But
we were working more with rodent coils, which are similar to the Keshe.
No, rodent coil is more like a toroid, but it's wound in a spiral way. But to make a scalar wave transmitter, you need to have counter-rotating magnetic fields. So you just have one clockwise wound, and then you have an exact counterclockwise wound. And then you send a pulse through it. It only works with pulses. It has to be AC or DC pulses.
DC pulses, right, yeah. My DC pulse mechanism is not operating right now, but yeah. Yeah, that would be a good experiment.
It'll make a wave that will penetrate through metal.
Right. Yeah, that would probably work.
That's how you're supposed to test those things.
Okay, well, that's a good idea.
That's a lot of fun to make pulse circuits.
Yeah, I haven't had time to do that, unfortunately. I haven't had time all summer.
Your hands are pretty cut up. You've been working as a mechanic still?
No, I just get a rash on my hands and they fall apart. Especially when I get a little bit of oil or grease or any foreign material on them, they instantly go into fall apart mode. So that's why I can't do mechanicking much anymore.
Yeah. That's too bad. Usually people get the allergic reactions, they get immune to it. There's got to be some kind of way to train your system to start adjusting.
Not according to the doctors. It's a permanent thing.
What do doctors know? You know, we're plasma experts.
Yeah, usually I don't go to doctors. I don't trust them worth anything. But once in a while they know something. When the doctor tells me it's something at work that's affecting your skin, and I start experimenting. Oh, it really is oil. When I get a drop of oil in my skin, it breaks out and I bleed. Okay, so I bleed when I touch oil. Well, that's nice. I'm some kind of modern Christ. My hands bleed when I touch oil. You know? So it's a totally bizarre situation, but that's apparently happens to quite a few people. It turns out that skin diseases is the major cause of loss of work in the world, and they don't even tell you about that. It's not even covered in the workman's compensation and all the other compensation until they started bringing this up a couple of years ago, and now they're starting to cover some of the cases of people similar to me, or in the case of a person locally, a shop, what do you call it, a shop mechanic, who, over a period of years got skin affliction, and they wouldn't cover him at all, and said they couldn't prove it, and so on and so forth. But now it's become obvious that most trades, most work with hands that people do, they get involved with stuff that is not really good for you, basically, as far as, for example, used motor oil is full of the worst kind of nanoparticles you could possibly imagine.
Oh yeah, it's so carcinogenic. It's unbelievable.
Right, and it's got lots of.
Well, you dig
carbon,
that stuff up from the earth. It's got every kind of radioactivity. It's got every element in the world in it.
That's right. Yeah, and that all gets.
And then it's all distilled down and concentrated.
Well, the worst part about it is that the nanoparticles that get generated, and there's a nanoparticle problem, and it kills millions of people a year. The nanoparticles below a certain size, like basically the 0.1 micron or somewhere around that size, they're so small that they don't get filtered out by the lungs, and they go directly into the bloodstream, and then they can be delivered to different organs where they build up, and you end up getting cancer in a particular organ and so on. But these nanoparticles are basically a carbon-based sphere that has inside of them all those toxic elements you were talking about, can be encapsulated by a nice tough carbon sphere. Diesel vehicles are particularly good at that. They create these carbon-based spheres with the benzene or other types of toxic elements, the most carcinogenic
carbon is a major building block element. Think about it. It makes diamond. It makes carbon dioxide gas.
Yeah, it makes perfect buckyballs. What's called buckyballs that they came up with, carbon C60 and so on. Well, these buckyballs can enclose other elements such that this whole particle floats through the air, gets into your body. Then finally the body is able to break down, or maybe not even break down, the carbon, because the energy of that toxic element in the center is still given off by this. That's the whole bad thing about it. It's probably doesn't matter whether the skin here is broken down or not. The fields, the plasma fields from these bad guys are basically, when they get embedded in the body, are emitting, and that can lead to all kinds of issues. So that to me is the major transgression of the 20th and 21st centuries, is nanoparticles in the air, and that's part of what I can't handle. Basically, I am highly allergic to diesel exhaust and other exhausts from the work that I've done as a mechanic over the years. And now these nanoparticles, they estimate, are killing, for the UN estimates 4.5 million people a year. That's like 10,000, over 10,000 people a day are dying from nanoparticles, which is
remember
pretty bizarre.
Marianne said that to filter these things out of the atmosphere, like when we were talking about Tehran, and they were using clay or something. He said you need to get rid of the carbon dioxide because everything sticks to that. So maybe if you made yourself a CO2 GANs patch, made it into a glove or something, you know, your hands would heal right up, or it would be a barrier to protect you.
Quite possibly. I have experimented with the CO2 GANs actually directly on my skin. I just want to see if it would, what would happen. Because my skin is so sensitive. Like, I've used every kind of skin cream, all the natural products you can imagine, all the things that are supposed to cure you, and like, you know, vitamin E, for example. That's supposed to use vitamin E on the skin. It should be good.
That stuff is great. I've had motorcycle burns on my leg.
Yeah, well, that just about ripped the flesh off of me, so that didn't work at all. And virtually nothing would work except for coconut oil. Coconut oil was soothing, did not cause any irritation, whatever. Totally soothing. And the CO2 GANs, I must admit, did work. I tried it to see if it would irritate, sort of a fight or flight thing, it's going to work or not. And sure enough, it did have healing qualities. I wouldn't necessarily use it every day all the time, but I would use it in certain circumstances, perhaps. And
Rick,
it could be that a patch or something else would be a good way to go.
If you made a cup of life and you put some diesel fuel on it, that could be either deadly to you, or maybe it could boost your immune system.
Yeah, there's not a fucking chance that I'll do that, I'll tell you that. Not a chance. Even getting close to that stuff makes me sick to my stomach, and that's my greatest fear in life, basically. And it's a justified fear at this point. Pardon me?
I say the boss finally got here. Hello, Moran.
Oh.
Rick.
Good morning, sir.
Rick.
Yes, hi, Michael.
Why don't you just make yourself a bay?
Armin too.
With the coconut oil, mix up some CO2 in the coconut oil.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I thought about that, actually. That would probably be the best way to go. Let's see his picture there. I haven't. Yeah, he's got some great set of glasses, actually.
Look, I'm disappointed. I put those ping pong balls in my eye sockets, and then you deleted that part.
Where was that?
Oh, that was in a workshop a long time ago.
Deleted it.
I thought it was so funny. I was cracking up myself.
Oh, okay.
But I watched that whole program, and it got cut out.
Yeah, well, if there's a, well, I don't know. I don't think I cut that out deliberately, but maybe it wasn't available to the
by
video.
The way, Rick, I don't know if it's your fault, but I listened to the recording when I was talking to Moran. That was like I think it was 3 workshops ago. It had when I listened to the whole thing, there were cuts in it that were repeats from before. I think I was repeated like 3 times at one time. It was all cut up, and it made me sound like an idiot.
I am not sure. If you can give me the workshop and the time on it, and I'll try to fix it or see what you're talking about.
It was 3 ago, and I think it's gone now. I think that it wasn't up for a long time, and somebody put it up.
Right. Well, we've had a lot of audio issues in some of the earlier workshops lately, so some of them are very hard to listen to. I find I would be very disappointed to listen to them, some of them. So that's just the way it is. It's hard to get all the systems working properly to get good audio, even in this modern day and age, in spite of spending a lot of money to do so and so on. So we're trying the best we can.
There's a lot of interference in the interfaces from one program to another.
Yes, that's right.
And I really wish that
too many programs.
I wish Moran would wear a digital tape recorder on him, so when there's all these cutoffs and stuff, we're able to recover all these valuable presentations that he does, because he has a tendency to, and to not accent his last words, you know, and his voice falls off, and I always miss it. Like he was explaining the nano coating with the caustic and then the DC current. Then he would say fire, you know, but I could barely hear what he was saying, and only I was just wondering how many people were missing that.
Yeah, there's some bad audio, and there's lots of parts I missed as well, and it's regrettable, but not a lot we can do about that right now. And sometimes things do get recorded on the side that we could get some of that back, perhaps. It's just a major. We have to start. Right? We have to. Pardon me.
I say they're now doing local recordings, right, in the room, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so that should take care of that problem.
Should, yes, but we'll see. It's just that it's becomes a editing nightmare trying to patch together 5 or 6 different sources all at once.
Keshe needs an editing room.
Well, we need an editing crew, actually. Yeah, you should have a full-time audio and video person there that really knows what they're doing. So far, we haven't had that, but that's...
Yeah, it's a shame. You got those nice cameras and stuff. You just need to add a few more...
Yeah, they have a fellow there that's pretty good. He's learning, at least. He's good on the technical end. He just has to learn the audio and video part. So...
And it really needs to be done locally there.
Yeah, that's right. It should be done locally. Pardon me?
Is anyone volunteering for that?
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a...
suggestions. We need more contribution.
Well, there is a full-time person there, or as far as I know, full-time. That's Fabio. But he's just not there, you know, he's not perfect because he's not an audio-video person. He's a computer person. So he has to be taught and learned, and then we have to go through many workshops of learning. And that's what we're doing. So we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. If anybody is an audio video whiz and wants to volunteer their time to do it and go there and gets accepted by Mr. Keshe and is able to do that, then that would be great. But so far we have what we have.
The problem we have is not, it's literally growing into new dimensions. And the problem we have is people who come understand the technology. That's our problem. Otherwise, we had a camera guy, he was playing computer game on his laptop because he had no clue about the technology.
That's right.
So we need someone who is, in a way, while he's doing the work, he learns, at the same time he knows what he's doing with the system. Because Fabio is well versed with the technology. He's the guy who's translated book #1 into Italian and is getting published soon. So he knows what technology is about. He's translating book #2 in the coming time, and book #3. People who understand the technology we have, in a way, they should be part of the foundation work, understanding of the technology. So,
yeah, well, see, we're running into a problem right now as you speak. I can barely understand what you're saying because the technology won't allow us to hear you clearly.
Because I'm driving.
Right. Well, this is part of it. There's bandwidth problems in Italy a lot. So, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Keshe, the problem really is all the interfaces. The different technologies don't really get along with each other, and it.
There is always a way around it, but it's just that what is happening is too rapid growth, and in the next few weeks we'll see more. The permanent staff of the foundation rises to about 30 to 50 people in the coming weeks. And trying to find, we are not bringing people for the sake of bringing people. We're only taking people up as we see how they perform in what field, that we can use their expertise. And now we have a permanent staff of about 15 on the payroll of the foundation, and it's just growing. Every week we take 1 or 2 people who we see in different research parts. In January, we become more or less a crew of about 70, 80 people on one click of the day, is the way it's organized. And don't forget what do you call it, in next 3 weeks, the total employment with the Keshe. So it's just growing, and we need people with their own expertise, literally their own expertise. The foundation in the coming months will reach 1,000 employees full time only in Italy. We see it the way it's coming up. So this is what we see happening. But the next 4 weeks, we escalate as a Keshe Foundation total to just under 300 in Italy. So we had to look. Is what you see on the face of the foundation, just the teaching, is becoming what do you call it, a backdrop in the whole of the operation, which we don't disclose anymore because of the problems we've seen. So we're bringing a specialist, and it's bringing different arms of the foundation together to work using the same people without the people around the foundation know that they're sitting in different houses. Then we're finding people who are operating without anybody knowing in 3, 4 different places for the foundation.
I think the problem is to bring everybody together is really not possible.
You see, it is possible. We are doing it.
It is possible virtually if we do it.
Let me explain to you something. I'm putting my other jacket on. My scientific background teaching full time is about 15 years old. My business background goes over 35 years. And in my time, I have run corporations up to 20,000 people. Fully owned by me, nobody else. I know how to run bigger corporations.
Yes.
I'm not a green mustache guy. Yeah, I run businesses in 3 continents, 5 offices with 20,000 people, employees on the bill, with no partners. So I know how to run. It's just, it has to be done the way as the foundation grows. It has to be done that does not put pressure the way it is. What we saw in the past few weeks with the bringing down of the server, what do you call it, the live stream, we expect these things. It's going to get worse in the next 2 or 3 weeks once we show the energy unit. So we are building in the background without any confirmation to anybody, because I don't need to inform anyone. You got to realize something very clear. The foundation is one man, and that's me. At the end, if it goes right, it's me. If it goes wrong, it's me. The foundation goes in the hand of United Nations and the Universal Suggestion because of them. I have to make sure when I hand it over, it's done in a perfect shape. Not because there is a problem. And we were expecting this growth where we are here 8, 10 years ago. And we were blocked continuously. And you've seen who's done it. Now we see the true face of people. Yeah. So now we have to bring people in which we trust, not just because they have the ability. We have to bring people with the ability that we can position in a key structure, but at the same time, they understand the work of the foundation. You see what happened with Professor Lutzi. Very nice talk. We left our home in the north. We lived in a beautiful environment to start in the south. We got here, we found out everything which we put on the table, even on the documentation, was all falsified. So we had to start a foundation in the new center from zero. And that's only in 3 months. So I don't bring people to run just because they know. We bring people because we trust.
I understand trust is your biggest problem. Trust and security come hand in hand. But no one man can do this. You've got to.
No, we are getting more and more people. There are
Yes.
people we know, we trust now. You've got to realize at the moment the foundation workforce rises rapidly to 300 to 500 people before Christmas to 3,000 in January. I don't take these kind of commitments without having people I trust.
Yeah, as fast as possible, you need to delegate out your work.
Oh, I mean, I know what to do. I ran international business for long enough. I know what to do. But you got to realize the foundation, especially in the next 2 weeks after the 16th, is not a private foundation. We become internationally open up for everything we do. You got to realize what's happening after the 16th. We are not meeting a conference to show something. We are delivering to change the structure. Yeah. In past week, 10 days, I received telephone calls from presidents, ambassadors, old friend of mine, who say, Mehran, we know what you're doing. We want to be part of it. You understand? So I know how to handle. I am what they call it. I was explaining to a couple of friends recently. You know, when you go to the circus, the clown is the one who knows everything. That's why he's a clown. I don't need to be a clown, but I've got to know what the clowns do in the circus, and I know how to stop it. This is the problem.
You always have to be trying to go to the next level. I understand your expertise.
We don't need. Put it this way. I'm not arrogant, but put it this way. I ran a multi-billion organization for long enough. And to run that kind of business, you need to be very shrewd, very smart, and very correct. And I carry all three of them enough. You've seen the letter we put out. They threatened us to bring the logo down. Now you see the logo has become a noose around the neck. We have to be correct, and we have to be more than correct. This is the problem.
The problem is you're dealing with men, and we all think differently. So you can't be, you've got to compromise all the time. You just got to accept it.
No, you don't compromise. You see, this is the problem. When you're in a weak point, you compromise.
If you try to be a
no, when you sit, no, that's the old-fashioned thinking. I never worked that way. When you compromise, it means you're weak. When you collaborate, you strengthen. I work with collaboration. I don't work with compromise.
Well, I'm just throwing in some stuff here because I've hired people before, and I realized that I can't be overcritical. Otherwise, the people just take off.
They come and go. The flow rate in any organization is about 30%.
Yeah, you got to expect that.
No, that's what we've seen it even in the students. We had a guy with us from God knows the first week, and suddenly he's taken off on Thursday without even saying goodbye. So it happens. This is part of the whole thing is to structure for a long term to be correct. So
you just got to have backup. You always got to have a backup plan.
The way it is, the time you spend to have a backup is the energy can work forward. When it happens, then you structured it that it doesn't need a backup. Now we see the structure. You got to realize why Keshe Foundation is in this position. For 10 years, people who were close to us were working for government. We would have gone bigger than this, much 10 times, 100 times bigger in 10 years in Belgium. But the closest people we thought they were with us, they were working for government. We had a deal, we could have finished the deal with Boeing, with NASA a long time ago. But now you see in Italy, we don't have that position. We took a lawyer on to see into the logo situation 2 weeks ago. The lawyer got intimidated on the phone. He said, I don't want to get involved. Yeah? You don't know what we see in the background. So we know what we are doing. We are very clever, but on the other hand, we have a very good team around us. I trust the team we have built around, and it hasn't come over a day. It's come over years, months of working, and I don't even question. The question comes when you have doubts. I don't have doubts because people around the foundation in the core, in the top, are all who are devoted to see the change. And it's my responsibility to look after their time and the way they work. But you got to realize we went through a turmoil, huge turmoil. The trust in the people around us doesn't come overnight. I always said in my life, two things you cannot buy. One is trust. You can't pay somebody to trust you, and you can't pay somebody to love you. Yeah. So these things come over time. Yeah. And at the moment, we have a 40, 50 very tight core member teams, which I trust, and whatever is possible, we do. In time, it might become 100, 200.
Mr. Keshe, I'd like to say, you hear me criticize a lot, but I understand what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is the most what you're doing is the most complicated thing to do because of all the interference. And I'm only trying to help.
Yeah, I understand. We listen. I'm very open. My biggest help comes from my enemies because they show my weakness and I know where the weakness is to cover it.
Yeah, you're a very smart man.
Advice has got to be listened to because I don't spend time, never in my life, 40 years, 35 years, 40 years, since 1981, nearly 30, since I graduated. I ever took a step to go and harm anyone. I never took a step in my business to see if I can do something to get more. I always worked, I do my best, and if something happens which goes wrong, I have to learn something from it.
Well, they say you should keep your
energy. That's the way I work. I don't put energy in negativity. Never did. I even in the response I released a few days ago, if you look at it, it literally brings the position very clearly in respect to the foundation and a lot of people who were working on the assumption there was a lot of things going on, because a lot of people thought the trusted people were there to serve the foundation. We don't talk, we seen in respect to the situation when the live stream came down. I did not go in the front. We said, Rick knows and the others knows, we tried to repeat and repeat. We saw what the problem was. But in the background, I was working, you saw it, after a week he hasn't responded. 2 weeks, made the response very clear. We've been working with FBI and international securities watching the traffic. Nobody does this. I play two jackets. At the moment, anyone who's been on that website is fully monitored. All their computers is getting downloaded by the intelligence services. We have opened a big Pandora box of misconducts. I could have the first, second they go, blah, blah. I pushed, when I told what I was advised by our senior security officers, do this, I don't go and find somebody. When I want to speak to FBI, I was put at the highest level. Immediately action was taken. The first day they brought us the whole situation and condition. We sat down, we quiet, we listened to our advisors. I employ one of the top advisors, 3-4 top advisors in 2-3 different governments. They are friends.
I'm really surprised. That sounds like you've gone leaps and bounds above what I thought was possible.
No, because I worked in the international community for too long. I know the ways in and out. I have son of presidents as my students over years. I know the political game. I know the diplomatic game. I know everything else. But people think this guy is stupid the way he's doing it. The way we are doing it, we were doing it in Belgium. The Keshe Foundation would have been an international recognition everywhere. But we were not ready for it. That was good. Now we are ready for it. Now it can come out. There are people who are making a lot of walk around the embassies trying to stop the meeting. We are aware of it. Our security people are watching it. I carry for the foundation most powerful advisors in governments, not the government. We don't ever expose ourselves, but we know who to call with one telephone call.
Well, you know, the whole world is run by London and the Vatican.
The whole world is run by your brain. If you know who to talk to, where to talk to.
By a few people.
That's all. This is, there are people here in Italy, there are people that sit in Tehran, there are people sit in China, there are people sit in different locations. Go back in one, our enemies wrote, and they always disclose, huh? We've seen his brown book, and we've seen the name of the presidents and the mistresses of the presidents in his book. I'm that close to the number of top diplomats, politicians in the world. Because I work correct. In my business life, the same. Things happen. We don't know, we make mistakes. But if you make a mistake out of accident or not knowing, it corrects itself the good way. But if you set yourself to make a mistake, to damage someone, you have to pay for it. And this is not the way I work. So we're growing in the next 60 days, 100 days, in the next 3-4 months. The payroll of the foundation rises to about 300 and immediately up to 3,000. We are planning it. It's all been done. I brought the team in to see. Just 1 second, please. So what you need, you have to organize things.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to mention, is that groups will be set up, hopefully with the community.keshefoundation.org space. So we have like video editors could be one group, or transcribers or translators.
It just takes time. It got to take time. The best thing, a lot of you saw it as a bad thing, but the best thing happened to me and to the foundation in so many ways was the live stream coming down. All of you saw it as a failure or a problem. Yes, we created a problem. We were expecting. My advisors advised me, Mehran, he might bring the website down. He might do this. I said, saving the life of a child worth the whole website. The day I went to disclose what I disclosed, I was fully aware of what's happening. But we never thought this idiot would go that far. But by going that far, he opened the White House to look into him. You don't know at what level he's observed at the moment, but they're waiting to see. He has made an international network. It has to be sorted. It takes 1 or 2 years to finish these things. So when the live stream went out, it was the best thing for us. Absolutely the best thing. Do you know why? Do you know why? Rick got angry. He got, what we say, pissed off with bringing the website, but we started fresh. We had to start fresh because when we started the live stream, when we started the teaching 2 years ago, we were not aware that so much illegal material has been put to us by people who came to teach. They would have brought us down in 2 years' time. And when we became open, so much more open, they would have gone to the health teachings. Every health teachings, the first 15, 20, has got more illegal material put in than God knows the whole of the internet. Unlicensed pictures. At least now, We've seen from number 78, 79, we start fresh, Rick is controlling, nothing comes in wrong. And in time, we put editors to edit the past teachings and bring them in. Can you imagine in 2 years' time, somebody claimed copyright on one of the things which Elia Kostova put in the health section? It would have been brought down and everything bigger scale would have gone. Now at least we managed to control it.
Yeah, that's right, because right now they aren't maybe searching for images as much as they could be, but in the future they'll have the technology to research every single video and make sure that it doesn't have any copyright, and if it does, they'll make sure there's a price tag attached to that immediately. That's the way it's going in the future. All images will be owned.
Rick went apes. He was so angry. It's been brought down. We put it up. We brought it down again. We put it up. We brought it down again. Now I don't want to speak. I took a team of advisors. You've seen me. I still tell my word, but I don't say nothing to insult nobody. You understand? I use my diplomatic language.
Yes, I'm thankful for that, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
Yeah, we know where the red circle goes, but there is no name. What is the red circle? Well, and the ones who know what they've done, they get it.
Well, we got some interference going on there. Suddenly, okay. Yeah. What is that ticking?
Don't worry. I've seen the angers, I've seen the frustration, we're losing things, but it was a process that we had to learn. And in so many ways, if you see the larger scale of what we pushed and how much pressure we put on the certain government, the king of the government has decreed a system to stop what was wrong and the government itself was responsible for.
Getting just a minute, Mr. Keshe. Yeah, it's on your line. It's on your
received a king consent in past 6 weeks.
We're getting a pretty strong signal on your line there, Mr. Keshe.
Pardon?
Getting a strong noise on your line there.
Oh, they're listening.
It's like tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
It seems to be trying to interfere.
Yeah. So we get in the ears of the people who can manage. We received what do you call it, royal decree signed by the king himself to stop the things we've been informing and he was aware of. And we will open this in the coming time. We watch everything, but you got to understand one thing. We will not show weakness. We show a strength, but very astute. I see people get frustrated in the way I do things, but you got to look what we take advice from. I listen to advisors from 3-4 different governments on a regular basis. So we need to build a core for the Keshe Foundation the way it is, for the people we trust. We've seen even people in Italy who were very close to us in past few weeks. Actually, they're sitting in 2 houses, but they don't know we are watching them. In the front, you see them in the foundation, very active, very supportive. In the background, they're doing other things because we monitor their work. So, we are not playing from the weak point. We play from a very strong point, and our strength is being correct. They tried to delay delivery of goods that we could be sued for fraud and whatever. The PayPal account was frozen for nearly 60 days in getting money out. They went to our banks, writing about crooks, immediately reported what you call the Office of Interpol interfered in support of us, saying that they're monitoring. They went to the police in 2 nations and immediately was bounced back that everything has been checked, the foundation is correct. Actually, they put themselves on the observation of the police. very closely with the lawyers in the banks and major banks we operate through, because they have to know, because they see it, our documents, they asked, they went through it. They took us in court, we never announced it. About a year ago, they closed all the, they went to close all the companies of the Keshe Foundation. And it was done by the same people as you see with the Red Circle Group in different form. We went to court, we took our documents, and within half an hour, the judge said, this is all fraudulent claims. Just threw them out. And they went through government. They thought because they carry the tag of government, because they're in that level, they can shut everything down. The judge said, no way. Everything with Keshe Foundation in the books, the accounts, the presentation to the government is 100% correct. We never went out public with it. We just received a final confirmation from the court that the case is dismissed. I have to pay damages a week ago. These guys are very active and they take a lot of time and energy, but it's their time and energy, not us. All our problem comes from one country, one person, and now we know how it was about 10 years. Now we are free. You see a lot of developments. Now we can talk about it because it's over. I literally pleaded with Rick when the website went down. I could see his frustration that all the work we done went. So what do we do? How do we handle it? But I had to stay there and see, and I had to consult from our people, and we see it was the best thing for us because there was too many, 200 times videos at least, which could bring the foundation down by copyrights. Don't forget now, this team of guys, we're going page by page, finding what we were doing, where it was wrong, going and informing the copyright owners that these guys have this page in your page. Can you bring them down? You don't know what they're doing or the other. Now we took it down, it came down, YouTube has been moved. Now we can clean them up and come up with nothing. We could see what they started. It's a team of people in Europe, all working in the same direction. An organization like us should have these kind of people to show our weaknesses. They're not our enemies, they're our friends because they show your weakness where the problem is. We got to use it. Sorry, gentlemen. We don't know everything, but what we know, we try to protect. And we bring servers back up. Let us sort out the other sides we are doing. This function on the 16th is going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of organization. There are groups of people in the background doing things, and it's not easy. You got to realize we are making even the 100th system in the special boxes good for ambassadors. We are making a number of boxes presented good for a king or a president. Every detail is getting looked after. But we don't go public because that's our job. That's why I took 2 days out of teaching, Mondays and Fridays, that I can delegate more to the running of the foundation, because when I teach enough for people to understand for hundreds of years. Gentlemen, I've got to go because I've got to get to the foundation to teach at 10 o'clock. I hope you see a little bit insight into what we are doing and what's happening in the background. Well, we need people who we can trust to give jobs to and look after the way they look after us.
Moran, during this whole conversation, there's been a clicking noise, I believe, coming from your phone.
Yeah.
Oh, they sit everywhere. Don't worry. I'm in the car, middle of nowhere, so they work themselves. No problem.
Yeah, I would like to work remotely here in the Midwest USA for Keshe. on the energy supply. So
We got to see what we're doing. Anything in US is in the hand of Armin. We have set a structure up, is a company becoming a foundation, and Armin is just responsible for it.
Yeah, I would like to have regular Zoom contact with your development group so we can work those things out.
No problem. As you know, we announced now 16th. We are working in the background to have the 4th ambassadorial meeting for peace on 21st of January in Tehran. That takes a lot of working for me with the Iranian officials. If we don't do it, there's a possibility it'll be on 21st of April. And this time we're exchanging energy for peace. In the next session of the ambassadorial meeting, we are exchanging space technology. It means full lift development. And I don't take these steps if it's not in my hand. So we're going to the next step of one nation, one planet in the next year. And what do you call it? In that process, part of your work, which you've seen, will be done through the space technology by delivering flying systems. Sorry about that. I have to go, otherwise I'll never get to work.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye. All right, special guest appearance there. Okay, anything else you want to bring up here? I'd kind of like to take a break for the next while, actually, before the workshop begins. The other workshop, that is.
No, that was quite interesting. I wish we didn't have all that damn interference.
Oh, that's annoying, all right. I don't know what that was.
I lost the whole gist of what Moran was saying. I could have learned something valuable there.
Yeah.
It sounded like a microwave pulse. They were probably trying to irradiate him. Well,
it was definitely a high energy pulse. Sometimes you can get that just through electronics on a vehicle, but it was odd, to say the least.
I'd swear I got hit last week to make me have that fall, because I just blacked out. But who knows?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping to ask him about the infrared filter. I couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Okay, next time. Alrighty, I think I'm going to shut it down here. I'm not quite up to snuff tonight, so I need to take a bit of a rest here. And so it was interesting. Thanks for the questions there that helped get things going a bit. And
well, thanks for the space, Rick.
Yeah, Rick, you need to hire some help.
Well, this is what's happening. So I wanted to mention about there is a video editor guy that's working now for us, and he's going to try to organize some of the transcribers and so on and try to get the video people together. We need to have more than one person doing this kind of thing. It's one person to sort of organize a group of volunteers that are able and willing to dive into it, to do video editing, transcribing, translating, and all the stuff to get these productions made and out there to people that need to know.
In other words, we need people who can do magic.
It is a kind of magic.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It takes magic because of all the interference.
Yeah, that's right. And so many different systems and different, back end stuff going on.
It's negotiation.
Yeah. And then trying to organize all the different aspects.
May even take money.
Might even take money. Whatever it takes, we're going to get the job done the next little while here, basically. So I'm hoping to use that community.keshefoundation.org as a basis, because people need to sign in there. So it's a bit of a filter to start with, so it's not just anybody. You know that there's someone that's serious about the Keshe stuff that's in there. And we've already formed the spaceship construction group, and people can join that, as well as I'll be forming in the next day or two a video editors group and transcribers group and so on.
Oh, one more thing, Rick. This is off topic, but there was a pretty Oriental lady that worked for Keshe for a while, and I believe she left Keshe immediately so she could go help out at Fukushima. Am I right?
Yukaku, yeah.
Is she okay now?
As far as I know, yeah. I believe so. I haven't heard anything untoward about her.
Because the way they were talking about her, it sounded like maybe she may have met some kind of demise.
No,
that's why I asked.
So. I don't think there's anything wrong there.
Wasn't there a female scientist in Belgium that got run off the road and shot? I
don't know. I don't want to end the workshop on that kind of note, but things happen, and yeah, people have to be aware of that. So far, I think we've been very fortunate in the Keshe Foundation. We haven't been shut down by government agencies. We haven't been harassed, and basically we're doing very good. And people aren't dropping dead from all the rays from space and everything else. So,
yeah, we made it through September too. It was supposed to be a bad month.
I know I've been waiting for the tsunami to wash out the future site of the Keshe Foundation Canada here, but it hasn't yet. And I'd hoped that it would at least wash it out, and then I can start fresh and don't have to worry about the next 300 years. But instead is a suspicious sort of delay in all earthquakes and tsunamis in the last 5 or 6 days. The world is basically quiet, and this is very strange because usually within every few days there's a major action somewhere in the world, and I don't know. It's
well, anyway, on the good note, it sounds like Keshe has made amazing progress and getting all the bugs worked out.
Yeah, he's very good at what he does, actually, and it's surprising to me the different skills he does have in business and whatnot that I wasn't aware of years ago. So he's a pretty amazing guy and comes right down to it.
So expect a lot of good things to come very soon.
Yep, these good things are happening now, and better will be happening, I think, in the future here. So,
well, see you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for coming by for the Plasma Reactor group for, well, now it's Wednesday, September 30th, 2015. Okay, I'll end the meeting and stop the recording.
Yourself here.